One defense expert said today, quote, "The lives of our pilots rely on secrecy." When you were given a mission, did you consider that information secret?
Oh, absolutely. And Elizabeth, I've just happened to have spent a lot of time on some aircraft carriers in the region, flying F-18s. So I know a little bit about war planning and what's going on in this case. If I were on the boat right now, I'd laugh about all of this going on at home, and then we'd go execute the mission. This was sophomoric, JV, unforced error, but absolutely nothing too lethal was released. And you can see in the chat thread, Elizabeth, that they talk about being on the high side or going back to the high side. So if there's any doubt, there's no doubt. They were kind of operating in some grayness. You led with, hey, it's Signal Gate or it's a nothing burger. Let's meet in the middle. Absolutely should not have been doing this, but at the end of the day, seeing those Hornets launch off of the aircraft carrier, nobody was in danger. Let me give you a quick analogy, Elizabeth. If Sister Mary's of the Poor University got Alabama's playbook, right? And they knew every single play that Alabama was going to run each time, they still have to defend against it, Elizabeth. I'm not being facetious when I say the president could have emailed Yemen these plans and it would not have changed the outcome.
Yeah,
Stupid, yes. Lethal, no.
These Yemen rebels have been quite effective. They've shot down several Reaper drones. They fired a missile at a F-16 last month. They missed, but, they're not, kids out there.
Well, Elizabeth, let's be clear. A drone is a drone. It's not an F-18 flown by a human, so it's a lot more expendable. We actually prefer to use these drones, so Whiz isn't on your program getting beat up as a POW, right? So they're a lot more expendable than aircraft. And to be honest with you, Elizabeth, sometimes we send these drones in to be a missile sponge or to absorb, to pretend it's a fighter jet, so we can kind of see what they have and we can plan for that. So them losing a couple drones or us losing a couple drones isn't that big of a deal to me.
All right, Matthew, stand by. I want to bring in retired Air Force Lieutenant General Richard Newton. He's a NewsNation senior national contributor. General, do you agree with what Matthew said, that this was no big deal?
Well, Elizabeth, good to be with you, and Matthew, good to be with you also this evening. I think from a pure operational, putting weapons on target, as we had a clip there, a Democratic congressman in the Intel committee meeting was talking about putting in significant harm's way of our men and women, such as Whiz and his 40 combat sorties and so forth. Yeah, that's remote in this particular situation. What I'm most concerned about is, in a broader sense, this was really an extraordinary breach of security, on an app, a Signal app that I've seen, in my 38 years and maybe 12 years since. So the broader picture is actually having this operational dialogue between principals at the National Security Council in Signal application, this communication app, and then also the discussions that's going on between the Secretary, Vice President, or Secretary of Defense, and so forth. Not only about advice to the president, but also concerning our allies. So the fact that it ended up in the public domain is very concerning to me. And my bottom line here, Mike Waltz, by the way, I'm a big fan of what President Trump and the team have done national security-wise. And a lot of members of this national security team that are actually on that text stream have done, I think, a fairly remarkable job so far. But Mike Waltz, who's our national security advisor, has said it's a mistake and it's embarrassing. And I think I'd back up what Senator Wicker said, the chairman of the Senate Armed Services Committee, a Republican, by the way, said we need to do probably some congressional hearings here. And
no, he's called for an investigation.
I'm sorry, Elizabeth?
There will be an investigation. Senator Wicker, a Republican, has called for an investigation by the Department of Defense Inspector General. I just want to, to press you both on this, because we have a Navy pilot and an Air Force general. General, you first. If you were launching an attack and half an hour before your jets were set to take off, 2 hours before the attack was set to happen, if somehow the details of that attack leaked out, would you call it off or would you continue with it?
I would try to put, I'd have my own insights in terms of what's the level of risk that we're now, are the defense threats up? Is there other aspects to how I see the targets moving and so forth? It would become a very near operational decision, but I would probably press forward with the attack and go with a little bit more calculated risk. But I've got to make sure that that level of risk has not been so daunting that it would put my aircrew at any more increased risk for failure and getting them back home. So I'd press forward with the attack, but nonetheless, I'd be rather disappointed that leaked out.
Yeah, I reported from an aircraft carrier that was in the midst of a bombing campaign several years ago, and I remember we were sworn to secrecy. The things we went through to guarantee that nothing we reported would ever get out before the attack happened were extraordinary. This information was closely guarded.
And I would think,
hey, Elizabeth.
Yeah.
It's very important. It's over to you.
Sure,
No,
Matthew.
I just wanted to say real quick, let it be national news that Elizabeth just made a naval aviator equal to an Air Force general. So that's high. That's high praise. But he put it right through the bullseye. Not the best, but we still would have pressed forward with the mission. And in my younger days, as a naval aviator flying Hornets off of carriers, I almost wish they would have told the Yemenis the exact plan that we were coming, just to prove that we are the most elite fighting force on the planet.
Yeah. General, several retired military commanders say Hegseth is wrong when he says this information wasn't classified. There are DOD and D&I guidelines that say if any kind of operational details are released, that is classified information. Is this classified or not?
Let me give you my perspective. It'll be hopefully a short answer. I oversaw, when I was running global operations on the Joint Chiefs of Staff, I oversaw the National Military Command Center and the system and so forth. This information is sensitive enough, in my view, sitting down here in South Florida, by the way, 1,200 miles from Washington, D.C., that it would pertain to classified information, not only the aspect of the operational planning, the weapon systems involved, but frankly, the sensitive dialogue going on between key members of the National Security Council, National Security Advisor, Secretary of State.
So you're more bothered by that?
I'm bothered by that as much as I'm anything that puts any more, harm's way of our men and women in uniform, yes. But I'm broadly speaking here, this is very concerning to me. And I think they ought to get off signal and get back into our operation security, our secure communications that we have, wherever they're traveling to, whatever dialogue, be more secure than what they've demonstrated on signal.
And super quick, Matthew, you got 10 seconds, but when you are given a mission like this, you're not allowed to tell anybody about it, right?
Well, no, you're out there on the tip of the spear. The only people who need to know are the folks that need to know out on the tip of the spear. I remember, reaching out to my wife weeks later, and she's like, nope, didn't even hear anything about it. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, that's great.
Yeah, there's a lot of secrecy.
Unforced error, Elizabeth, but they will crack the whip and tighten us up.
All right. Matthew, Whiz, Buckley, great to have you back on the show. General Luton, always great to have you on the show. Really appreciate your expertise. And I did not say you're the same rank, but you're both
veterans.
You're both airmen. You're both airmen, and most importantly,
Amen.
you both served our country in uniform, and we thank you for that.
Thanks, Elizabeth. God bless America.
Yeah.
God bless America.
Thanks so much for watching. Go to joinnn.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.